Everyone, welcome back to Reading Corner. I am so happy that you came to read with me today because I've got some really lovely fun books to read with you. My first book is called Counting on Frank, and it's about a very smart 8-year-old boy who has a dog called Frank, and it's about their adventures in counting and calculating and all sorts of interesting things. Then we have a book about Harry Maclary and his Caterwaul caper. So we'll find out what mischief Harry Maclary and his friends get up to in that story. And then our final story is the classic Dr. Seuss, There's a Wocket in My Pocket. And you may have read that book. You may have read none of them or all of them, but I'm so glad that you're here to read along with me today. I just love having your company. So let's start with Counting on Frank. My dad says, if you've got a brain, then use it. So I do. I sit down and fill my notebook with facts. Did you know that the average ballpoint pen draws a line 2,060 metres long before the ink runs out? My parents consider this fact to be a bit childish, but I'm sure the pen company would like to know. My dog Frank is pretty big and takes up a lot of space. I calculate that 24 Franks could fit into my bedroom, but sometimes there isn't even room for one. If Frank were a humpback whale, however, then only 10 would fit into our entire house. I asked Dad about this, and he said they would get in the way of the television. I calculate that only one dad would fit inside our big television, but only 1/10 of him would fit in Mum's portable. Mum said she would prefer the top part because Dad's feet smell. We've got a gum tree in our garden. It grows about 2 metres every year. If I had grown at the same speed, I'd now be 16 metres tall. I wouldn't mind really, except that I'd never get clothes to fit. I don't mind having a bath. It gives me time to think. For example, I calculate it would take 11 hours and 45 minutes to fill the entire bathroom with water. That's with both taps running. It would take slightly less time to empty, as long as no one opened the door. When I get dressed, I don't think about fashion or style. I think about facts. For instance, it's a fact that if I put on every article of clothing in my cupboard, I would be 2.8 metres tall and 1.8 metres wide. I would also be unable to sit down. I enjoy dinner, not because of the delicious grill Mum cooks every night, or the thrilling conversation. It's the peas. If I had accidentally knocked 15 peas off my plate every night for the last 8 years, they would now be level with the tabletop. Maybe then Mum would understand her son does not like peas. There's a mosquito in my bedroom keeping me awake. He's very interested in the workings of my brain. If he were 4 million times bigger, he wouldn't fit inside my ear, but I guess he'd make more noise than a jumbo jet. At breakfast, I have a glass of orange juice and 2 pieces of toast. Our old toaster shoots the toast about 1 metre in the air. It makes you think, if our house toaster were as big as the house, it could endanger low-flying aircraft. Going shopping with Mum is a big event. She is lucky to have such an intelligent trolley pusher. It takes 47 cans of dog food to fill one trolley, but only one to knock over 110. Because of Frank, my knuckles will scrape along the ground by the time I'm 25. The local club had a competition. You had to guess how many jelly beans were in the jar, and the prize was a trip to Hawaii. They didn't know who they were dealing with. There are 745 jelly beans in the average lolly jar. I thought everybody knew that. As Dad said on the plane to Hawaii, if you've got a brain, then use it. The end. He was a smart little cookie, wasn't he? Winning a trip to Hawaii with the jelly beans. Now we're going to read Harry Maclary, Caterwaul Caper. With a twitch of his tail and a purposeful paw, down by the river crept Scarface Claw. He woke up a lizard, he startled a bee, and he bothered a blackbird high in a tree. Higher and higher he sneakily snuck, but up in the branches he suddenly stuck. Row! He yowled. Harry Maclary was eating his meal, jelly meat, biscuits, a snippet of veal. All of a sudden he heard a strange sound, a yowling, a wailing that echoed around. Row! Yep, 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 said Harry Maclary, and off he went. Hercules Morse was asleep in a glade with his tail in the sun and his head in the shade. Then came the sound that echoed around. Row! Woof, said Hercules Morse, and off he went. Bottomley Potts was rolling about with his feet in the air and his tongue hanging out. Then came the sound that echoed around. Row! Row, 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 said Bottomley Potts, and off he went. Muffin McClay was having a bath in the old wooden tub at the side of the path. Then came the sound that echoed around. Row! Ruff, ruff, said Muffin McClay, and off he went. Bitzer Maloney was having a scratch as he lay in the sun in the strawberry patch. Then came the sound that echoed around. Row, wow, wow, bow, wow, bow, wow, 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 said Bitzer Maloney, and off he went. Schnitzel von Krumm was digging a hole in his favourite spot by the passion fruit pole. Then came the sound that echoed around. Row, wow, yip, yip, said Schnitzel von Krumm, and off he went. Puffing and panting, impatient to see, together they came to the foot of the tree. They sniffed and they snuffled, they bustled around, and they saw what was making the terrible sound. Yip, yip, said Schnitzel von Krumm. Wow, 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 said Bitzer Maloney. Ruff, ruff, said Muffin McClay. Row, 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 said Bottomley Potts. Woof, said Hercules Morse. Yep, 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 said Harry Maclary. And row, said Scarface Claw. The din was so awful that uphill and down you could hear the cacophony all over town. Miss Plum brought a ladder and climbed up the tree. She rescued old Scarface. At last he was free. With a flick of his tail and a shake of each paw, off at a gallop went Scarface Claw. And back to their business at Donaldson's dairy went all of the others with Harry Maclary. The end. Poor Scarface Claw got stuck in a tree. Not fun, but Miss Plum is always around to rescue those dogs. Now we're going to read There's a Wocket in My Pocket. There's a wocket in my pocket, and a findo in my window, and a nook case in my bookcase. Did you ever have the feeling there's a wasket in your basket? Or a neuro in your bureau? Or a was it in your closet? Sometimes I feel quite certain there's a jerton in the curtain. Sometimes I have the feeling there's a zlock behind the clock. And that Zelf upon that shelf, I have talked to him myself. That's the kind of house I live in. There's a nink in the sink and a zamp in the lamp. And they're rather nice, I think. Some of them are very friendly, like the yacht in the pot. But that yottle in the bottle, well, some are friendly, some are not. I like the Zabel on the table and the Gare under the chair. But that Bofa on the sofa, well, I wish he wasn't there. All those nubbins in the cupboards, they're good fun to have about. But that noothbrush on my toothbrush, him, I could do without. The only one I'm really scared of is that bug under the rug. And that Quimney up the chimney, I don't like him, not at all. And it makes me sort of nervous when the Zool scoops down the hall. But the Yeps on the steps, they're great fun to have around. And so are many, many other friends that I have found. Like the Teller and the Nella and the Gella and the Della and the Bella and the Weller and the Zella in the cellar. And the Geeling on the ceiling and the Zower in my shower and the Zillow on my pillow. I don't care if you believe it. That's the kind of house I live in, and I hope we never leave it. The end. Did you know that when I asked my children, who are all grown-ups now, which books I should read for my reading corner time, my son Joel said that I should read There's a Wocket in My Pocket. So now I have read that one for him. I'm sure he'll be very pleased that I've shared it with all of you because that was one of his favourites. And I hope that you enjoyed the other stories too. I hope that you have fun counting and measuring and calculating. And I really hope that none of your cats get stuck up a tree. And maybe in your imagination, you can imagine what sort of friends you have in your own house. I really hope you have fun with that and that you've enjoyed today. And I'm looking forward to having you come back and see me again next time at Reading Corner. Bye for now.